Hey you guys, it's Katie and Elisha from the blog and podcast nowthatwe'reafamily.com, and today we get to talk about something that is a rule I have practically lived by since I was like 14 years old, but we've recently just applied it to our family, and it's given us a lot of clarity and a lot of vision, and things can change obviously, but I am a big believer in probably taking that Bible verse way too far, but that is the heart of man plans his way and the Lord directs his steps. And I really think there is something to planning your way regardless of what the Lord has in store and what curveballs he throws our way. So with that said, we're going to jump into the video. If you like it, click the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. That way you can see us every Thursday.
All too often, young families that are in our season of life with young children where you're trying to homeschool, you're trying to find the best, home flow. All too often, we're characterized by being busy, by running from one commitment to the next, bringing your kids to soccer practice, then bringing your daughter to ballet, and then dropping your sons off at t-ball practice just to get home in time for Wednesday night church service as a family. And when you have that type of schedule, it's really challenging to have your own family culture oftentimes because your schedule and your routine and your flow around the home is being dictated by outside forces. And I know Katie and I have felt this way at various times in our home where it gets to Friday night and we look back and we think, did we even decide what we were doing on any of our evenings, or did it feel like those decisions were made for us? We just said yes to opportunities and to offers and to invitations only to get to a point in our life where we feel like we're out of control in what our life looks like. Now, that does not have to be the case, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't have to be the case. And one way Katie and I try to get the proverbial toothpaste back in the tube in these types of situations is by looking at our list of 100 things to be, do, or have. What is the list of 100 things to be, do, or have? Well, this is actually a task that I was given by my father-in-law, Chad Johnson, when I first started pursuing Katie. So we weren't dating yet. I wanted to date her. I had a big fat crush on her. And when I talked to her dad, Chad, he said, okay, well here, do something for me. He said, write down a list of 100 things you want to be, do, or have. And I thought, what the heck? How do I, okay, that seems kind of superficial or simple-minded. It doesn't seem very spiritual. Thinking about writing things down that you want to have or that you want to do in this life. Why can't I just say I want to be a godly man and that's enough for you? But when I started this exercise, I started realizing how beneficial it was to me as a Christian man, because Christian men do things, right? As a Christian mother, as a Christian father, as a Christian woman, and as a Christian man, you can't just say, oh, I want to serve the Lord. In your brain, that person is doing something. You serving the Lord is actively doing something with your life. And you know what some of your God-given gifts and abilities are. You know what some of the desires of your heart that have been there since you can remember, some of the things some of these skills that you've acquired over the years. The Lord is going to use those things. And so when Chad challenged me to do this, I really started having to flesh out what I thought me living as a godly man looked like in a practical way. And so I made a list of 100 things to be, do, or have. Katie, like you mentioned before, this is something that you've done since you were a young child.
Yeah, I think the first list, a list that I still have is from when I was 14 years old. And I have on there, like, I want to save up $5,000 more, so I'm ready to buy a car at 16. And then when I was 16 years old, I have one of those lists, and it was like, okay, I want to roll over in a kayak from upside down in the water, and just like random things that I wanted to be, do, or have. And I don't know when my parents started having us do this. It usually happened around the first of the year. Instead of doing resolutions, we'd write down these lists of 100 things we wanted to be, do, or have. But I really think as a parent, if you do have teens or preteens, it's really helpful to get an insight into what they value, what they think is important, and if they have vision or not for their life. Like, if you can only write 5 things, then maybe we need to brainstorm a little bit with like a parent-child situation and come up with some things that get you excited and some things that you're going to be pursuing. So I think this was a really helpful exercise in just looking big picture and in clarifying your goals, and also just what you're going to do with your free time. This is something that Elisha and I share in the Get It All Done Club and in the Growth Initiative. One of the first things we have those people going through those programs do is write down this list for yourself personally, because I can speak for homemakers. When we are at home, we have all these odd little assortments of time, and years can go by with us doing nothing but the bare minimum to keep a home functioning. But when you have that list, that's a bigger picture list on maybe what we want to do personally, how we want our marriage to look, where we want to go financially as a couple, or stuff like that. When you have those little 10 minutes here or an hour or 2 there, you're able to put energy into those things that maybe that don't just come to mind automatically. And you're able to go back and be like, oh, in this moment of clarity, I wrote this down.
Yeah, and I love that as we've gotten better at doing this, you learned to write big picture, big long-term plans like, man, I want to, in the middle of the night, climb the Eiffel Tower and base jump off of there. And you're like, that's a big dream that I have. But then you think of smaller things that are very actionable right now. And that might be, I've always wanted to read the Odyssey, Homer's The Odyssey or the Iliad. And that's something that you're like, well, sure, maybe it takes a few hours to be able to go through that, but you can start right now. You can find probably a free version online and start that. And that might be something that you have on your list, or it could be something even as simple as, I've wanted to plant a garden. Well, you're thinking, I need property, I need a lot of acreage in order to do that. You're like, okay, well, maybe I need to read a book on gardening. So then you put that on your list. And so you're able to take an action on something that you've wanted to do for a long time, right when you've got 5 minutes on a Thursday afternoon.
And this can be really hard if you're perfectionistic. It can be really hard if you aren't used to dreaming and you feel like you need to hit every mark that you put out there for yourself, because this is a very shotgun approach. And there are things on my lists, when I'm 14, 16, 20, last year, that I'm just like, you know what, I've moved on from that. That's not actually something that I want to pursue anymore, or Elisha and I have changed direction as a couple or as a family. And so that's okay. You have to be okay with letting stuff drop and letting stuff, growing past things that maybe you wanted in the past. But there are going to be some things in there that really stick and that you're able to see quantifiable progress in.
Yeah, I remember one of the first things I put down, I shouldn't say one of the first things, but it was in the top 50 of my list when I first went through this, and that was to perform as a band with my siblings on the Jimmy Fallon show. And it's funny, I look at that now and I'm like, I would not want to be in that situation at all. Like that would be such an uncomfortable, out of context situation for me and my siblings to be in. And so you can take that off the list, but that's what I wanted at that point. And so you got to be honest with where you're at in life, and then be open to growing and saying, hey, I'm taking this one off the list, I'm going to replace it with something else. Something that we've done recently, literally over the last couple of months, is not just apply this to us as individuals, but apply it to us as a family. So what are our 100 things we want to be, do, or have as a family? And this has been so helpful because, like I said at the beginning, oftentimes you find yourself committing to things and going from one activity to the next, not knowing if it's a part of your bigger vision for your family. And in order to have the ability to say no to something, you need to have a clear yes. You need to have a clear why in something that you're going to be pursuing as a family. And so, a situation that happened pretty recently for us is we found ourselves going from one soccer practice to the next soccer practice to soccer games. And we have, 3 children that are at that age where it's keeping us busy. We were able to step back, go to our list and say, is this even on our list of something we want to be, do, or have as a family? And guess what? It wasn't even on our list.
We just dropped out cold turkey as soon as
We're like, this isn't what...
looked at our list. We're like, this is not worth our time and effort because it comes nowhere close to anything that we want to pursue as a family. Like the character that we want to build into our kids, the experiences we want to give them. Like it sounded like a great opportunity when we signed up for it. Everyone was signing up for soccer. It was a great thing last year for us. It was really fun. It helped us get our 1,000 hours outside.
Yes.
Last year, I would say it did fit in our goals for who we wanted to be as a family on our list of 100 things. But this year, it was nowhere to be found on it. And so it was really easy for us both to look at each other and be like, oh, this is an easy no. Where we didn't have that at first. Like Elisha thought it was an easy no, and I thought like we need to do this. So he was really doing it for me. And then when I went back and looked at the list, I just had this clarity right away of like, oh, this does not fit into any of the things we want to be, do, or have as a family. Let's cut it.
When you have a list of a variety of various, I guess, levels of things you want to be, do, or have, you're able to easily find something that's going to replace that right away. So, I mean, we look at our list here and you're thinking, okay, well, we have, go scuba diving as a family. Well, we couldn't instantly replace soccer with scuba diving as a family because we're not in a position to do that. We don't have access to good scuba diving. Our kids aren't at that right age. So you're like, well, man, we can't do that. But we do have on the list, teach our kids how to swim. Like that's something.
5 swimmers.
We need all of our kids to be able to swim, and it's literally on our list. And so we're thinking, okay, I was thinking about the hours where we put into soccer and how if we put those hours into swim lessons or just teaching our kids how to swim, we're like, this is an easy win right here. And it happens to be on our list of 100 things we want to be, do, or have. And there were some other small things on our list too that we can then fill our time with. We want to give our kids some, speaking opportunities. Okay, what are things that they can practice so that when they visit their aunts and uncles, they can do a speech for them, or eventually
memorize poems,
exactly,
or memorize scripture, practice presenting with their fiddles or with singing together as a family, stuff like that. And again, that's all like smaller things. Like we right away, we canceled soccer, we just quit. And then we went to the Croc Center, which is like our gym membership, and got a membership for the pool right there.
Yes.
And what's really fun about this is you can have short-term things. Like we want to go back to Kentucky. I have a sister that's back in Kentucky, and we want to visit them before they move. And we don't know if they're going to be there, for a year or 10 years or whatever. So we really feel like we want to get that on the calendar for this upcoming spring. And it's a big deal, obviously, to fly everybody back there and all that. But when we were evaluating our priorities, making that trip is a really big priority. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. And so we have that clarity in this moment.
Yeah, and you contrast that to something else that we put on the list that might sound lofty, and that's bring our whole family to Israel. We want to bring our family to Israel. Well, we can't do that next year. We probably won't be able to do that within the next 5 years. But we do think we can get to Kentucky, and then when in doing that, go to the Creation Museum, go to the Ark Encounter while we're there, and we're like, man, we're checking a bunch of things on the list with this one trip.
Yeah, other things we have are, have our children graduate with the minimum of an AA, but ideally they're bachelors by the time they're out of high school. And obviously that's like, that's a big, long, far away goal. Our kids are going to determine whether or not that happens. But for me as a home educator, that's giving me a game plan for, okay, that's the end goal. So we're backing up to where our children are 5 and 6. And be like, well, what do we need to do today in order to make that a possibility for us? Because that's something we would like to help facilitate for our kids.
Yeah, I love that when we're clear on this list and then an opportunity arises that's aligned with the list, it's so obvious. And you're like, oh, we can confidently say yes to this because it's been on the list for 8 months or it's been on the list for 2 years and we know we've always wanted to do this. The reason we got into soccer is because it was that time of year and all of our friends in our small group, everybody at our church, they were saying, oh yeah, we're signing our kids up for soccer. And we're thinking, okay, well, I guess, yeah, we should, okay, let's sign our kids up for soccer because everybody's doing it. It wasn't on the list. We didn't, reference the list or consult the list for whether or not this was a good yes. Something we have on the list is we want our kids to be able to learn how to ride horses, horseback riding lessons. Again, that's not something that's happening next week or even next month probably. But when the opportunity arises, or if that opportunity arises, we'll be ready. And it's crazy how many opportunities actually do arise that you miss if you aren't actively looking for it. There are people at our church that own horses. When that opportunity arises for us to go to their farm, go to their ranch, and ride horses, we're going to be ready because we're like, well, yeah, it's on the list. We want our kids to be able to learn how to ride horses.
Yeah, I'm just going to read a couple random things off of our list. We want to do a family camp out. We think that would be fun. We put down different holidays that we want to celebrate with different sides of the family. Sometimes that can be really clarifying too.
Yes.
So it's just kind of like it's already been decided and everyone knows what to expect, especially when you have maybe big families and you want to make sure you're splitting holidays and getting to see everybody. We have things like one day building a home, giving our boys and a daughter experience with high angle ropes courses. We'd like them to have some kind of construction experience. Have conversations on ski lifts. We talked about that before. Our children are homeschooled, and that is a great way to socialize with people outside your comfort zone and make them feel comfortable. We want all our children to read through the Bible, read through 25 books of their choice on our family book list. So Elisha and I constructed a book list of a bunch of books that have been impactful to us that we would like our children to read one day, and we'd like them to select ones that pick their interests off of that list and read at least 25 books on that list. Put the things on the list that matter to you. It doesn't matter if they show up on someone else's dream chart of achievements. It's just something to work towards.
Yeah, some things that are important to me. A family mission trip. We've talked about an opportunity to go serve on a mission trip as a family. Again, that's a big one. Okay, well, we have some smaller ones too, and that is I want my kids to be able to learn how to cook a meal for the whole family. Every one of my kids, I want them at some point to be able to learn how to shop for all the ingredients, to see the timing of what goes into preparing a meal for the whole family. I want them to learn how to play chess. I want them to learn how to play Spanish. I want them to all be able to take ballroom dancing lessons. Might sound kind of funny, but I want that for my kiddos. It's something that I did later in life. Katie and I both have done it later in life. But I thought, boy, how cool would it be is when that opportunity arises, we're thinking, we know this teacher or we know this class environment, and it's something that's on the list. Let's, get our kids in this ballroom dancing class so they're able to learn. But again, you will miss out on those opportunities if you're not clear on what you actually want your family culture and what you want your family to be doing.
And it's really easy, especially with extracurriculars and all the things. As our kids start getting older, those things get more and more prevalent where there's just so many opportunities to do so many different things. And so by just putting things like we want our kids to have speaking opportunities where they're perfecting those not conversational skills, those presentation skills, and then we want them to have opportunities for conversational skills or mechanical experience or construction experience. These things are kind of open-ended, but when a curricular or the opportunity presents itself, it's really easy to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to do that, and we aren't going to join the football team because, being a football quarterback is nowhere on the list.
It isn't. And
as far as our long-term vision for a kid.
Yeah, and when you all of a sudden have this list, it's like your ear's so tuned to those opportunities. Katie heard somebody at our church talking about one of the dads that does a workshop at his house. He works with wood, and Katie was in tune to it. She's like, wait a second, I think that's something that's on our list. And she's like, Elisha, you need to talk to so-and-so and see if it's possible for our boys to go over to their workshop and start doing the woodworking class that he offers. And so it's really fun to comprise this list. It helps you and your spouse get on the same page in drawing a vision. And I think that it's truly like a muscle to flex. Or setting goals and setting a vision for your family is like a muscle. It really is. Where you might say something like, well, I want our family to be a giving family. Well, that's great, but describe what you mean by that. Does that mean you want your kids to bake cookies and then to give them to everybody on your block? Or do you want each one of your kids to find something that you can buy dinner for, at your church? What is the activity that you can then link with that virtue that you want your home to be known for? And the more you do that, the more fun it gets, because you're thinking, boy, we can actually do some of these things right now. We want our kids to be good conversationalists. Well, how about they go around our block and introduce themselves to each one of our neighbors, that we can see from here? That's something that we can do right away. Teach them how to shake hands, teach them how to make eye contact.
Go to an old folks home and sing for the people there and get used to talking to the people there and making their day.
Yes.
And also, this is a really helpful thing just in general with marriage, getting on the same page as your spouse with your vision for the family. Because I think, some families, they write mission statements or family vision statements, and we haven't done that for our family. I think it's a great exercise. But anything that requires you to put down what's going on in your mind on paper is going to be clarifying for your vision as a family and your unity as a spouse.
Yes.
Because if something's very important to me and I think, oh, our kids are absolutely going to be doing this in high school, and Elisha's like, where are you coming from, lady? And I'm like, well, this was something I did or whatever, right? That conversation comes up now.
Yes.
And that's helpful versus it coming up maybe in front of the kids.
Yes.
Or coming up, years down the road when you're like, oh, I've just always assumed we would do this with our kids because that's what I value. It's really fun. And then it's also fun to hear your spouse's ideas and be like, oh my goodness, I never thought of that. Like, we'll totally be on the lookout for those opportunities.
Yeah, it is, especially coming into the holiday season here. We've got a lot of friends where one of the spouses had all these great memories with Halloween and trick-or-treating and dressing up, whereas the other spouse was like, whoa, I've got strong convictions against Halloween. They were able to have that conversation and say, okay, we're going to then start a new tradition as a family, hosting a party with all of our friends from our church on that night of Halloween. It's not going to be celebrating any of the demonic or representing any of the demonic things that go with Halloween. We're going to start our own tradition. But they were able to get on the same page as a couple because they had that conversation. This can go with Christmas, it can go with Thanksgiving. What are your traditions that you don't even realize you're expecting to have in your home that you haven't communicated? And then you talk about it with your spouse. And then what do? You add it to the list of 100 things to be, do, or have. And you say, boy, we want to have a Christmas party every Friday before Christmas at our home. That's just something that we want to be known for. And we invite everybody, we save money so that we can have a feast. And it can be really generous to everybody that we know within our community, both Christians and non-Christians. If you get excited about that, then put it on your list and start that tradition.
And also, if you have older kids, this is a great opportunity to involve them in this whole brainstorming process. Our children are already, they know we have a list and they recommend things to put on the list. I see sticky notes over there on the board that they were recommending ideas for something else we were brainstorming for.
It's a silly thing to not set goals or to set expectations for your home because you think, well, my desires might change. My kids' desires might change. That's baked into the equation. It's like, yeah, that's going to happen, but you have to be heading in a direction right now. And it's way easier to pivot towards that change of desire within your child or within yourself if you're heading in a direction already. You're going to be filling your time with something between now and then, and you want to be the one being a lot more assertive in how you're filling it versus just society and outside commitments and obligations. So yes, there is total freedom to pivot and to change your direction of your family or of you as an individual. If your kids grow up and they want to do something that's not on the list, like you said, like great, get on board with that. But in the meantime, you need to have a vision for your family and have some set of expectations that you're then pursuing.
It also helps too, just to be communicating expectations to children if it's something that you really, really value, because over, from the time our children are very young to when they're 12 years old, they're looking to us as their ultimate heroes, and we're like the Bible to them. Like if mommy and daddy value it, they value it. And that's just kind of how kids are naturally in those ages. And then once they start hitting those, preteen and teen years, they start getting a lot more critical and starting to think for themselves a lot more. And that's a really healthy part of becoming an adult, and we want that for our children. But if there's things that we really want our children to value, now is a great time to start communicating that to them and to start showing them that with our actions and where we're putting our time, so that we are feeding, not just like helter-skelter valuing things because they're just getting thrown at us, but being like, okay, this is our list of what we really want our kids to value one day, regardless of how it looks. We can start right now when our children are very impressionable, they look up to us, and our opinion does matter to them.
That's right. Anyways, we could go on and on probably about
this is a fun topic.
We get excited about this.
Like this.
Yeah, so try this. Try writing your own list of 100 things you want to be, do, or have. Have your spouse do the same thing, and then try to get with your spouse and write a list for your family. And this could be things you want to do all together as a family, or it could be things you really want your kids to be able to experience. You get on the same page and you think, man, I really want my kids to be able to take, whatever, piano lessons. Let's put that on the list. And it doesn't have to be something you have to all do together, but something that you want for your home.
And obviously the number 100 can be really daunting number. I think You don't have to, there's nothing magical with
No,
100.
you have to do 100.
You could do 25.
Stop, Katie. Stop. You got to do 100.
But I think there is power in saying 100. Like our list, it doesn't have necessarily 100 things on it, but we call it our list of 100 things to be, do, or have, because I think that number is so big. It allows you to just throw stuff at the wall
Yes.
and kind of see what sticks. You don't have to be super committed to it. So, if you have 5 things you want to be, do, or have, it's like you better think really long and hard about those 5 things.
Yes.
So it's really fun to just keep it big, keep it open-ended, put it on as an idea, and you can discuss it later if, you aren't sold on it.
That's exactly right. I think that's the point in doing 100 things, because after you get to probably 25 or 30, you'll be like, there's no more things in the world. There's no more things to do in my life. And you think, well, let's start thinking about other things. You're like, I want to bake brownies with my kids. And well, that's something you can do right now. So it actually is kind of fun when you keep going to the full 100, because you start actually, instead of getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you can do that. You actually start getting a lot more practical and things that you can do like today.
Yeah, I think our second point on here was to ski Switzerland as a family one day. That's a huge goal. That is a multi-generational goal, because my dad has had that as a goal and he hasn't achieved it yet. And it is my goal to do one day with my children as well. So, that's a really big one. You may not do that. And then down here at the bottom, we have our kids all know how to change a tire. So that's a lot more doable, right?
Yes.
So you usually tend to actually start really big and then get more practical the further you go.
That's exactly right. Anyways, give it a shot.
We're really done this time.
Yeah, we are done. Give it a shot. I hope this blesses your family and your home. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Hey everyone, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about our online music academy called votebergmusicacademy.com. Katie and I actually started this online music academy 7 years ago, and over that time we've been able to see thousands of students go through our courses and learn how to play the guitar, the mandolin, the fiddle, the piano, the ukulele, and bring music into their home. And we really curated these lessons so that you're able to learn with your child, or you're able to learn by yourself and then bring music into your home and play with your kiddos. We even have it so that you can, subscribe to one course and have 3 of your kids take the same course. So it's really cost effective, and you're able to go at your own pace and bring music into your home. Go to votebergmusicacademy.com and check this out. Okay, listen up. This is where it gets really good. If you enter the coupon code YouTube at checkout, you will get 10% off each month's payment, because it's a subscription. It's a reoccurring payment. So if you put that code in, then it's 10% off each month. So, that can really add up over time. So bring some music into your family's home. Go over to votebergmusicacademy.com. I'll link it below. And you guys put in that coupon code and go learn how to play some piano, guitar, fiddle, mandolin, ukulele, your choice.